Hey everybody, this is Austin from Spur Design Garage. Welcome back to the channel. It's been a very long time since the last video. It's just been a really busy holiday season, but I'm excited to get back into video making and creating cool videos of car design, building my business, design tips, all of the above. In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at a part 2 of utilizing artificial intelligence in the design process. I did a previous video based on an Alfa Romeo sports car. We used Vizcom.ai to experiment with that technology and try to understand it a little bit better. Today's video is going to be an update to that, trying to understand how to use Vizcom.ai a little bit better, but it's going to be a bit more of a discussion about AI in design in general, my current thoughts on it, my thoughts on utilizing it in a process, how to utilize it a little bit better and more efficiently, but also how to add a little bit of humanity into it without it just purely being this sort of artificial, efficient process. If you haven't taken a look at part 1 of me jumping into AI and trying to figure out how to use it, definitely go check it out. It was a fun time using a Alfa Romeo sketch in 3/4 perspective and trying to figure out how to utilize a tool like Vizcom.ai, and discovered a few things along the way. So we're going to take those learnings and put them into this video. Alright, so this here was the original Prismacolor sketch that I did for part 1 of this video. The idea was that I was utilizing Vizcom.ai for the first time, trying to figure out how it works. So this is what we came up with. I had this idea for this design feature that stemmed from the front triangular grille through the body side, and you can see in that video that this is meant to be a sort of 3D element, that in the top view you see this triangular form, or the plan view you see this triangular form sort of pointing towards the triangular grille, and then at the body side it sort of peeks out to the side. So just trying to do something a little bit different with this Alfa Romeo. We learned a few things in that video. The main thing being that the shading definitely confused Vizcom. Some of these elements in here especially, I think, very much confused. I was trying to come up with something, a lower front fascia headlamp of sorts, and because headlamps typically aren't in this location, Vizcom was interpreting this surface change as the headlamp, and this was sort of getting blown out. So little things like that. The program seems to make things a little bit more generic, slightly more toned down versions of a sketch like this. In terms of the design elements that you normally wouldn't see, it tends to try to fuse into something that's a little bit more realistic, which is not entirely a bad thing. And I'll get into a little bit more thoughts behind that in this video, but what we're going to try to do is, I think we're going to go with a side view for the next stage here. So I'm going to develop a side view. I may time lapse it for the sake of this video, but we're going to try to come up with something kind of cool and interesting, but the sketch is going to be much more minimal, maybe less exciting from a sketch standpoint, but I think it'll in turn translate into a better AI interpretation of what that sketch is. So let's get to it. All right, so as I mentioned, I'm going to be basically taking that original Alfa Romeo design sketch as loose inspiration and creating just a little bit of a more simplistic sketch from a side view. So less shading, and as you can see here in 10 times speed, I'm trying to figure out what exactly that form looks like and what I want to experiment with. Taking the Alfa Romeo 8C as a bit of inspiration. It's one of my all-time favorite designs from this brand, so that's where I'm starting, using a big crystal ballpoint pen and just doing some kind of quick sketches here. But let's talk a little bit about some of my thoughts regarding utilizing AI in the design process. I think that there are definitely some good points to using AI. So, one of the main things that people often talk about is adding efficiency to the design process. And it does so in, I think, a number of ways, at least from what I've seen so far. The main way being that it is iterating on sketches that you already have. So it's either generating from a prompt or it's loosely interpreting from your own sketch, which you'll see here in Vizcom.ai. And both of these ways give you far more iterations, right? So you're getting a lot more ideas generated in a smaller amount of time. It's preventing creative rut, perhaps, in certain ways. I think you could be stumped throughout the design process, and using AI will help generate more ideas and take your mind in a different place that you don't necessarily think you might go. And I think that's kind of the most interesting part about AI, really, is that it can reveal certain design elements or designs entirely that may have bits and pieces you can take from that you wouldn't have maybe drawn or sketched on your own, which I think can be an interesting, it's sort of like the experience of working with another designer and noticing how they think and how they work. So that's pretty cool. In contrast to that, though, I think that as a kid who wanted to be a car designer, I always loved the creative expression, whether through sketching or clay models, that this job entailed. And I feel like, similar to the act of writing something down, helping you to remember something, sketching or modeling something, really forming a nice sculptural model out of clay triggers a physical and cerebral reaction. I always loved passing vehicles or looking through books and thinking, what was the designer thinking here when they drew this line or sketched this thing? And it's sort of this feeling of communal or a human reaction to the design itself, because you know that there's a person behind it. And it makes you wonder, how can I become a better designer? How can I form my own opinions on what this design should be in contrast to this person who created this design? It begs all those sorts of questions where there is someone behind the design or a team of designers behind the design, and makes you think, certain thoughts. And so my first reaction really to AI and car design is, this might sound kind of extreme, but sort of a feeling of dystopia that is prevalent in a lot of different areas in modern society. And it's all kind of stemming from this choosing of clean-cut efficiency and profit over humanity. Things like the endless generation of content on Instagram, trying to get smaller and smaller amounts of views and more generated content, and the algorithm is just constantly against you. And not to mention all the super quick turn AI designs that are now on Instagram and other social media sites and elsewhere in the world. It's similar to endless Amazon products with no thought put into their use, their name, no love for the product or the end consumer. These get-rich-quick schemes that you see on YouTube, AI-generated robotic voices on videos, these top 10 videos that you see on YouTube. It's this efficiency and quantity over quality and over humanity. And I think that unless we kind of present a different way to work in terms of design here, that new generations will simply get used to this. They won't know an alternative. So I think that's one of the things that bothers me about AI, despite all the good things that can come from it. I mentioned the Alfa Romeo 8C earlier, and I think one of the things that I love about that design is that there's something sort of off about it. And this was mentioned in a Top Gear episode a while back, when the 8C was first coming to production. But it was really interesting to me because it was a Francis Bacon quote about there not being any beauty that doesn't have strangeness in its proportion. You know, there's sort of imperfection to the 8C because it was not a traditionally beautiful object, I guess you could say. There was something sort of different about it. And that's what I'm trying to do here in these sketches, is introduce a little bit of that difference through Photoshop over the top of these AI sketches. But and that made a product that was maybe not loved by everyone, but loved by, a few people who just really, really loved it, and it added a lot of joy to their life. This is in direct opposition to these efficiency tools, eye tracking software that shows how people find various bits of vehicles attractive or unattractive, and making this literally perfect vehicle, through that generated data, and pairing that to AI tools that, create perfect combinations of aerodynamics and packages and all of this data about what makes a vehicle attractive, and making something, literally perfect in a way. But I think there's something lacking there, this kind of robotic feeling of what used to be a very sculptural and artistic art form. So I may sound like a Luddite here, but I'm a huge proponent of elevating tech and utilizing new tools, but I think that the human element is so important, and we often discount it too quickly in our fast-paced world. And that's what I'm trying to explore through this process here that you're seeing on the screen, is how do you introduce a little bit of that human component? I iterated a couple of ideas based on my own sketch through Vizcom.ai, which is one of the reasons why I like Vizcom.ai, is that it's taking your own idea as a starting point and iterating off that. And then I twisted things and I morphed things in Photoshop. I added details and trying to introduce a little bit of this imperfection and also add a little bit of a human quality to the sketch itself, and make it not feel as much like a generated object. So I'm trying to figure out what that fusion is of the efficiency and the iteration of AI, and yet introducing a human element in this design process. And I haven't totally figured it out yet, or completely figured out my viewpoint on AI and the design process, but this was just a little way that I could continue to explore that. So let me know what you think about these thoughts and what you think about the end sketch here in the comments, and have a good day.